if I was confused at first. Thank you. Okay, so you want, and so I guess like I just wrote down the three like main things that you had to focus on with your essay, right?
Yeah.
And like racial foundation in the U.S., explore images, and with specific examples. So okay, and so I guess what I'll do since you have your laptop here, I'll look through the and you specifically need help on, or I'll look at how many pages is this? Okay, so I'll just read because it has your notes. So that's very important for me to read too, anyways. So okay, so while I'll read through this, maybe you could possibly write maybe write like
talk about two other articles on what you could
okay. And so maybe you could possibly write, maybe while I'm reading through this, maybe just write kind of like your writing process on this. And like, and I know you kind of mentioned to me before we started filming, but kind of talk about maybe some things that you had some, if there were any difficulties when writing art, or were there, and also maybe write some things where you, some things you notice are interesting as you're during the writing process. Okay. And I'll read through this. And thank you for your patience. Okay, sorry. Okay, and so, um, okay, and let me look through that real quick. It was difficult. It was difficult writing this because I had to explain certain examples that happened in the film. I know that this is my first time, but I am starting to get used to it. Interesting was to, it was interesting to only focus on one certain group that was African American, right?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And okay, so I think you made some interesting points, and I noticed that what sounds like on the right track, because first when I was reading that, because I can't believe when you, because because I don't know why I thought you, with the film you told me, I don't know why I assumed it was documentary, but it's Tyler Perry's film. When I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, why did I think it was documentary? So,
So you know who
yeah, I didn't watch that. I'm not familiar with his films, but I know of him and like
did it write about him in there?
Write about, yeah, you mentioned Tyler Perry because you have to, of course, you have to cite him, and so reading through that, because when I remembered it and like what I think you did, what you're on the right track is that you're on the right track where you're looking at it, you're talking about the film, but you're also kind of acknowledging and connecting that with like stereotypes because like I'm not familiar with, I know his films, I haven't really watched it, but I've heard like kind of reactions towards it because like I know some friends I know they like him a lot, and I have some friends that don't like him, especially when they talk about with racial stereotyping, and they feel that with his films like he's kind of like part of the problem because you mentioned it, I think you kind of mentioned it too, where the problem is that you notice that when you're connecting that and with your articles you read that it's kind of like it's kind of presenting African American characters in like a stereotypical way, and like you kind of it doesn't, and I can tell you're kind of like thinking like, oh wait, like why is this film one of the examples that are kind of contributing to this like stereotyping, which is unfortunate, and like however that's also part of it. It's like because the media is also part of like why a lot of stereotypes are being put out in like society because of, and so okay. And then you said I noticed at the end you said you wanted to figure out and you said you weren't sure. Did you say you weren't certain of where to put the article, cite the article, or I thought you mentioned the article? Oh, sorry.
Maybe I did.
Okay. Oh wait.
That was probably extensions from my notes. I don't know.
Okay. And then, because I can kind of see the prompt saying, and at least one other article you're choosing from our reading. So, what was the article you want to choose for this?
I think I might use this one. It's victims.
Okay. And then, did you have specific like quotations you're going to like help cite for your evidence?
There's this one it says when the slaves come to Africa, they are put in prison also gathered, and when we treat concerning by them, they all are brought out together in a large pain. Well, like, yeah, but I don't know, it's just kind of, I chose this quote because, like, they're human beings, and, like, they're not, like, items that could be buy. So, that got my attention, like, how is it that you could put a price on something?
Yeah.
And, like, sell them.
And, okay, what I'll do is...
And I have another quote where it says African slaves meant past profits for the related modest outlay for like the slaves meant like a profit, like that's a big profit for them
So,
But I don't know where I'm looking for
oh,
that.
yeah, I mean, because sometimes, like, I have this problem too, where, like, sometimes I have my evidence, but I just don't know where to plug it in sometimes,
Yeah.
but I think there could be a way where that's where,
So first, I want to start out my message talking about racial foundation.
okay,
Like
some side.
explaining what it means. Can I get one of your cards?
Oh, sure.
And then I don't know, like should I write there in the beginning like what I'm gonna talk about? In the intro?
In the intro? Yeah, you can do that. I mean, you just don't say like in this essay I'll write about this. You're just basically like what you just told me when you're presenting what you'll talk about. You just basically kind of mention in your introduction.
Like, so how do I bring it in the introduction?
Like such as if you want to bring in racial foundation, right? Because I know I think you defined it, but not in the essay itself. I believe.
Yeah, those were just notes.
In the notes you defined it. Okay. Right. So let's look. What I'll do is like kind of look back.
Like I want to say in my intro, I'm talking about article that I found on the page. Okay.
Oh no. That's good. So maybe I'll just try to move forward and see how you feel. Like for example, let's say you're so how would you kind of so let's say this is the beginning. So what in your words how would you introduce with the definition with your introduction?
I don't know, that's the hard part.
Oh no. Could you do maybe like could you like because I have chalk in my hand. Like goes back to the very beginning in the bluing part, and like kind of read out to me like what you like the first two sentences that you have.
The film I decided to include in The Diary of a Black Woman is a romantic comedy film studying and written by Tyler Perry. This film is about how there is an African American woman named Helen that lives with her husband Charles, who is also an African American.
Okay. And I think when you
I kind of have an idea.
okay, what I do. You can read it out.
Like something about being African American.
Like, what do you mean? Like, is it is it like, are you gonna kind of
African American.
yeah, it's okay to write it. Oh no, it's okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
I know. Well, we're kind of thinking like I'm assuming using identity and having it connected with this, right?
Yeah, I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I think.
But I don't know how to say it.
Like, okay, let me write out like racial foundation again here.
Yeah.
And then like, how would you? Let's kind of take.
I could use racial foundation could be described in the African American society. Or I'll be explaining what racial foundation means throughout the film.
Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a that sounds like a good start. And then how about we, like, because you don't have,
Should I say the articles and then, because like, I feel like I should do the intro, the articles, and then the film, and then maybe my conclusion. Because it's like 3 or 4 paragraphs, 3 or 4 pages.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's kind of technically like that's like not enough.
Yeah.
It's like a big thing to talk about.
I think it's like 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah. So you just said to mention the articles in the beginning.
What?
Did you?
No, my intro, I'm just gonna like do that. And then my second paragraph is gonna be about the article, and then the fourth will be about the film, and then the fifth will be. I don't know if that's possible.
No, I mean it's a kind of good thing to think on. Just make sure it's like as long the flow is clear.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
yeah, that's the thing, because like if I go from the film to the article, or maybe is that a little bit more tricky?
well, I mean, isn't this? It sounds like the central image is the film, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one advice like you could do is like where you take the article and because I don't think you need like a paragraph, just one paragraph about the article. You'll like let's say you're talking about a scene and then have that like and use like evidence from the article like within let's say you're talking about a particular scene and then you also cite the article which kind of like connects with that scene, if that makes any sense. Like if there's like
Like how women are like always cleaning and cooking.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting if there's something in the article that kind of, especially with regards to like with women, and like you connect it with how it's kind of like if you want to like, because yeah, that's like kind of when you think about it like within the film like why is it just the woman that's all doing the cleaning, cooking, and isn't it? And that could be kind of like when you think on it in like when you think on it like and you kind of like especially in an intensive way, then it kind of makes you. And you think in regards to stereotypes and think in regards to history, like yeah, that's kind of like a scary thing to see in a film that should be like that because of the film that is giving that is showcasing diversity. Yet like it's weird that it's so yeah.
I also wanted to say that oh yeah, it's kind of difficult for me because you know how I want to talk about slavery, and like that happened a long time ago, but it still exists.
I see what you mean.
So that's the tricky part.
Okay,
So that's
I know you don't mean like the literal, but it sounds like so when you take slavery like and compare slavery and like with the topic, like how do those two connect? Like
yeah, well it's just because slavery still exists.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
like,
one thing. So we just have to like.
Although are you reading? Because if you just because yeah, I mean with modern day slavery, unfortunately, it's still occurring. Like, but I mean, let's say you're showing a specific example, like it. I don't know, like what were you gonna do with like slavery? Because I noticed you mentioned in your notes like
yeah, like I was gonna like get quotes from the article.
okay, and then so with that, like what would it have? Well, how would that? What does that have to do with the film though? Like, because you're talking about the film and you're talking about stereotypes. So how does let's say this? How does slavery end?
Yeah, that.
How like how do these two connect? Because like
Yeah, that was the hard part. I mean, a lot of people that were in slavery are African American, and stereotypes. I feel like I'm choosing stereotypes because like men always African American men are always like violent, and the women are always like having to do cooking, cleaning, making the kids. So for me, the woman is treated like a slave, basically.
oh, okay, so And
But like there's different kind of women
mm,
in the African American society. Like there's like the women that are the opposite, and they're the ones that like make decisions in their homes, and there's other women that are yeah. So it's kind of hard to say.
okay. Oh, let's go back to the article because it sounds like you have a lot of ideas from the article you read. Like within the article, like, do they kind of, how do they mix in with like modern day with, or is it just talking about slavery?
I think it's talking about slavery. But yeah, like also like I want to say like men think that women just because they don't work, they don't make a profit or they're not bringing anything to the house. But technically they are because they're cleaning, cooking, and that's
Yeah, so it's
their
like,
job.
especially if the women are, if they're also a mom too, then you know that's another job.
Yeah, like in the film, like the guy thought that he had the power, that he could abuse her, he could do anything to the lady because he was the one that had a job and she did it, and when they got married, like the girl couldn't get anything out of this profit because the guy told her to not. I don't know what's that word called. Where like he told the girl, marry me because love, but marry me because of my profit. So she had to sign this paper where she wasn't allowed to get anything out of the money.
Oh, that one. Can't be freedom. But I know what you're talking about.
So that's so you know like I feel like that was kind of messed up because like if he's gonna be with her, why is he thinking?
Okay. Alright, so yeah. So we're in this film.
Oh yeah, there's also a lot of violence in slavery, and there's still violence now. There's stereotypes.
Okay, so it sounds like you're, because it sounds like the point of the article isn't necessarily like saying, okay, this is totally slavery, but it's more like when you're connecting with history and then connecting with now, like it sounds like you're noticing, because I can tell like, it's nice and you're noticing, it's kind of like, it's problematic when you see like, I guess like the emotional traits that are being connected with like, you know, like with slavery. It sounds like that's, because now you're telling me this film, I'm now seeing why some of my friends really don't like his films, because like why is it that the film has to be about an African American male that's violent towards another woman? And like, why does it have to be that?
Like there's those kind of women that they're violent, and there's the other ones that they just let things happen to them.
And like that's, I guess like, and yeah, that's a problem especially with African American males, because like why is it that they have to be seen as these violent characters? Like why can't we have, not that all films have to be super happy and perfect, but it's just that it's kind of a problem because this film's not the only example like this.
And they always have guns.
Guns. So this one has guns too.
Yeah, the lady always carries the gun in her purse, and then
that's really bad when you think about it. Like why?
she takes it out, and she's all like, "Oh, go ahead and call the cops. I'm not scared, man." And then she's like, "It takes them 10 minutes to get here, and then it takes me 9 minutes to be like to."
Oh. Problem is that, you know, using, you know, violence, you know,
yep,
just for, you know, I'm like, I should have told you like right now I'm kind of like very sleep deprived, so I can't think very eloquently, but it sounds like, because yes, now I definitely know why. A really good friend of mine really does not like Tyler Perry at all, and I think now you're telling me this, I can see why he really hates his films, because like it sounds like he's using with like guns like for like gimmicky, and I love, because I love like humor, like especially like especially humor that presents social commentary. But this sounds like he's using all these stereotypes as like punchlines, and then he should be kind of. But it sounds like he's doing the opposite of what he was. But because it sounds like he wanted to poke fun at stereotypes, but you're laughing, but you're not laughing with the fun. You're laughing at it because it's so unrealistic when you think about it. I mean, because it's not very. So I'm thinking, if did you mention that? I don't remember. Like, did you mention? Because that'd be kind of interesting if you kind of talk about like some of the humorous scenes.
Yeah, so that should I'll write it down and then do it.
And so going back to the article, like it does it use like imagery of like of current pop culture and like of how it's just of how it's in some if they're because it sounds like the point of your paper is that it's in a sense like in some ways like slavery is kind of like existing in a metaphorical way, but through like representations in pop culture. I'm assuming it's like because I remember reading this is really bad that I don't remember talking about. I saw this when I was undergrad, where it was showcasing a history thread of how African Americans were represented like way back during the colonial times and until like present day, and like of how they're shown through like quote unquote comedy, but yet it's like very racially like it's very like offensive like in the modern day. And what was very what was kind of like scary, like at the very end of the documentary, then they showed us images of all like of African Americans represented in current pop culture, and in a sense they kind of like it asks the question like, have it really progressed? Because like now it's like it's hard for me to explain because like I said, like very sleep deprived, but
what does that word say?
Where?
The last line.
In here?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it just said article. Sorry, it was just really sloppy, right?
About the...
Oh, because I think he's explaining what racial foundation means throughout the film and article.
Oh, the film and article.
Yeah, because that's what you told me you wanted to do.
Yeah. Because you had the film, and then you had the little thing. And
yeah, so and sorry, that's how I
yeah.
That's how I write and really.
Yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah, so like that little thing that you did there, that was the hard thing for me to like, cause like I knew what I was trying to say, but I couldn't really connect it. I couldn't really.
Oh, I mean, yeah, because this is like a big thing to talk about, especially when using history and combining that with because this is like a very yeah, I think that would be interesting if you kind of mentioned that specific scene that you told me that supposedly was comedic. Like when you saw that scene, like was it funny to you? I mean, it sounded like you did laugh at it, but it sounded like when you look back, it's like and you think about it, you're like
the
wow.
thing is that when I do look at the film, like I don't think about her being acting. I just think about the character just acting. And so now that I look at the scene and I'm doing this homework, it's like, oh, I have to focus like about she being African American and stuff. I have to focus on like what her culture is and stuff. And then like I think about it and I'm like, why is she like that? Is that how like did she see people in her family do that? Or like,
and
like how did they come up with her like how did they come up with her images? Like,
yeah, I think if you talk about that too, then that'll be interesting because like when you're analyzing, you have all these. And then that'll be interesting when you talk about when watching it when you're not like thinking of in regards to like racial foundation, like how different it is when you actually focus on race, and that could raise some questions and like
yeah, like there's comedians or like people that act funny on the TV that are like yeah, like when I look at it, I feel like that is American. But when I look at other cultures, I don't think about it. Like that.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting when you talk about how race, like when you're kind of analyzing the film and then you think of like the stereotypes and how they're still existing, and then that's kind of like it's kind of like very sad that where with like, because you know, you think there should be more films that represent like diversity and like kind of like where it's kind of, for, I guess this would be the term, like showing pride on, especially with like with um, like with ethnicity, but yet if it's like films like this where it's like all like just using I mean nothing wrong with like offensive humor, but it sounds like
I feel like they do it on purpose too, because
yeah.
a lot of her movies are like that.
Yeah, and it's I mean there's nothing wrong.
Like nobody could mess with her because she would like
yeah, because he always a lot of his film features Medea, but I know people have I'm sure there's tons of like scholarly articles where they kind of talk about how that's a problem when you keep showing a character that should be like an empowering female character, yet
Have you seen the movie Big Mama?
Big Mama's. How is it?
I think it's called Big Mama 1 or Big Mama 2.
Oh, those I know. I saw the first one. That I don't know when you're
About
younger.
the guy that dressed up.
Yeah, that's another. That film
But that film's less like violent, right?
Yeah, it's just dumb humor that wouldn't make any. I mean, wouldn't you recognize that's not your mom? Like someone pretending to be your mom.
Yeah. Like I was thinking of that.
Yeah, but it sounds like you can only focus on one. But that's another example of like, why is it has to be like, I mean, I like all kinds of humor, but like when you think about it, especially with like really dumb humor in Hollywood films.
Yeah, like how do they do that?
And like why? And you think of in regards to stereotyping, and you think, and also like the fact when you think on in a writing perspective, like it's not even. I mean, even though it sounds like I know that the female character. I mean, I know that one of the main characters, she was estranged from the mom, and I guess that's how they're trying to make her realistic. That yeah, she wouldn't recognize her own mom because she hasn't seen her in a long time. But no, it's because you know that's her mom, so she would know that's just a man in a suit.
Yeah, and then the big mama was like she was the FBI or something.
Yeah,
the guy.
Yeah, and it's so I don't know. It's just but it's for the sake of like
she
making.
Always carries a gun too.
Yeah, and like and yeah, it's just but it's interesting with this one because the characters because with the Medea characters, I know that it's not. I mean, as always, it is Tyler Perry like being the role, but it's but in the film, it, like the character's meant is not a disguise, even though. But with Big Mama's House, I think that's the film. I only saw the first one. It's the character clearly is disguising himself and like but it's so unrealistic. But that's another interesting film to think of too. But of course you can't mention it in this paper. But like I mean, I guess it sounds like because of this paper now when you look at other films you kind of think about it, and then which can be a good and bad thing because then you can't just sit and be entertained. Now you're going to be like you're probably going to go through the phase where you're like analyzing everything, and then pretty soon you can't watch anything anymore for a while because you can't turn off your brain because it's hard. Yeah. Especially when you think of like stereotypes, like
I asked people in my house, I'm like, what do you guys think about this film and this film and stuff like that? And they're all like, I think they're just acting.
Oh no.
And they weren't like getting the picture that like.
They're just like, I don't care, I just want to watch this movie.
No, like I watched this like a long time ago, so I was just like asking them what they thought about it. But they thought, they're just actors acting and they're getting paid. That's what they were telling me.
But then it's a problem when you think of stereotypes. I mean,
like
why they're still existing, and like there's so. Oh, no, okay, so. I feel bad we won't have enough time because half of the reason is because I couldn't figure out how to use a camera, even though I should know better, but I never used that one. But anyways, we have a little bit more time. So,
let's see if it's...
Oh, sorry.
So I should do like a first the film and then the article.
I mean, I guess what I meant to say is like, let's say for example, like, or I mean, it's however you feel, because it sounds like this is a bit of like a response. See how I noticed, like, for example, when you said Helen's pretty much treated like a slave, like, I think somewhere in this paragraph, you can like plug in the article kind of to prove your point, because just presenting as is, it's fine, but then it would be more stronger when you are able to plug in with, like, let's say in this paragraph, like, I guess, like, for example, like, what you could do is maybe, let's say, like, right after you say, society see this as being normal because we're used to hearing that African Americans are violent and have guns and are dangerous people. Let's say, like, after that sentence, then you could say, like, something like, according to yada yada article, the author talks about, and then you cite the quote, and then you kind of go back and how to connect that with, like, your argument of how, like, it's kind of like sad that these characters in this film are presented as like this, are like being unintentionally are seen as slaves with stereotyping, and like especially when
they're pretty much being like victims of slavery.
Or you could, sounds like you're arguing that with their like, especially with female characters, it's like they're doing work, they're being treated as slaves in the film, because especially with this character who's being basically abused by her husband, and so yeah, I think it's good to mention that, and then you could, within that paragraph, it's good to like kind of cite the article, so that way it proves your point of like, yeah, this is like, it clearly, yeah, connects.
Yeah, like African slaves, and then that's profit
for a relatively modest outlay. Or the ones you mentioned before might be more, because I don't know how you could argue that they're being sold as a.
When these slaves come to they're put in prison, when
try to get through as much as
they,
possible.
when we treat them certain buying them, like
I guess the only like, but like in the film itself, like no one's being literally bought, and it might be complicated when you watch.
yeah, I got that
Like, is there like is there a specific, maybe if you read through and try to find like
related reads? It relates to listening to.
I mean, unless you want to use that quote and argue how it of how like, because this film's being bought for profit, right? And like, so I don't know if there's a way you can argue that that this film because what I would do, if you really want to use that quotation, like kind of argue, like, you know, these characters presented through like images of slavery, because like especially with the abuse that they're undergoing, that maybe you could argue that how that like because that quotation shows what they're like being sold for profit, like innocent. So it's kind of like weird. I mean, it's kind of like depressing, like with this one, because it's being sold for profit, right? So like maybe if you're arguing like with these images that are kind of like in a sense like unintentionally like unintentionally like where like where it's hard for me to say, like where it's showing like stereotyping and like this film's being sold, because of course a lot of parody films like makes a lot of money, so I don't know if you I don't know if it would be kind of stretched, like that's one thing you can do is like kind of somehow figure out how that, and like I would kind of show
like,
more evidence.
Like the film is being bought for profit, and I want to test as
So,
well through like how
how many
slaves are
functions
bought
do
from
we
farming
have?
as well.
And so maybe
So, I don't know.
you
It's
could
not
try,
always
and like I would,
the best way,
then
but
I wouldn't
sometimes
use just like
labels
quotation,
might
like I would
be
get like there's like it continues on like explaining it more, right? Yeah, so like I'll make
But
sure
really,
you have to make sure that a lot of
functionally,
you
the
don't
best way to
just
approach
do one
it
quotation.
is
You could
my
have quite a few
preferred
maybe,
way.
or like kind of talk
Start
more
out
about how the article
and
discusses.
work in.
Because if that article
So
kind
if
of
we're doing
connects it with like
sign,
modern day like society, then
So
like,
we start
then I
with
can
function,
think you
which
can
is
prove your point.
So I say like
basically
according
just
to
looking at the
global
signs with
aspects,
cosine.
I
and
put
leave
this
everything
information
else.
and I'm like, then I quote this and I talk about it.
Yeah, I think I would do that so
Now,
that it will prove
we've
you, so that way you
differentiated the
don't
outermost.
unintentionally
And the
make
nice thing
it
about the chain
off-putting,
rule,
or they get
it
confused
is
like,
a lot
wait, but
messy,
this is just a film, and how does this have to do with like slavery?
So you don't have to worry too
And
much
like,
about the
because it sounds like you're
product
arguing that like,
or sometimes they come up, but
like images of slavery
do this
unfortunately
time.
still existing
Now
through
we
like
just
these
let-
stereotypes,
differentiate
especially
the
when they
next
keep
function
being
and
presented
multiply
in
it in.
violence rather
So,
than like in something that
cosine,
like that is empowering, because this whole
getting
film
that
something is
portion
not
the same.
empowering. Like I
And then
honestly
final
don't know if I want.
innermost.
Maybe I should just watch so I can have my own opinion. But it sounds like it's not a fun film. But then it makes you wonder why he was popular like back then. His films.
Can't really
Oh,
simplify
like that.
much.
Yeah, because I know he was a playwright too.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
so
does a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean
play
it's
around with three identities.
I don't know, like some people
It's about,
really
like, a deep chain, and
like
it's
him,
really
but
easy.
You don't put it one cover? One over is from
Only
So where the people were?
which is a lot of times
okay, so what I'll do is just
chain off is like a
turn off the
sign.
Who would you put one?
Where are you
Yeah.
supposed to put?
Hmm?
Where?
Sign, square, times quantity E. To the
No,
sign.
this one's more. I would probably anywhere in this paragraph, but it's up to you though. And like, and unfortunately, because of my, because with the trick of the camera, unfortunately, there's not enough time. 'Cause I don't know if I have the next appointment.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I guess I think I turned this off.
Oh look, it's funny how we're talking about. Oh, she read.
Oh yeah, because I think it's based on like what's being discussed.
Okay. And,
It's really funny how she's making.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, the only problem is I hope I can figure out how to. Okay, anyways, I guess my suggestion is, and plus I don't have, and plus because I don't want to make the wrong suggestion because I didn't read that article, so I think that, but I would probably recommend, because when you're talking, especially with the paragraphs where you're talking about slavery, I would use that article. So, because it would seem unorganized if you talk about it and then you have the article, just talk about the article, then that might seem unorganized. But if there's a way you could figure out where to plug in,
So on this one, I just
In the beginning of this first, in my introduction, can I say something about this?
the introduction. What? Oh yeah, because you wanted to define racial foundation, right?
Like according to this.
Yeah, I think because that talks about racial foundation, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably, so if we go to cite it, because it's
Yeah.
that way.
so expand it out. Well, basically, I just kind of split it apart. So if we multiply these together, that would equal sine squared. Yeah. But no, there's a couple ways to approach it. Alright.